Hi, everyone. Welcome
Hi.
to this is the week one. So like the second week, the second weekly sync, but the first week we've actually done anything for TCL 27. Um, first, before we dive into anything, how you doing? Feel okay? Feel nobody's super like or anything? Okay, cool. Awesome. First thing we're going to do is roll into demos. So we haven't done that yet here. Effectively, we are just going to talk about the work that you did over the last week. So that everybody is in sync with what you've been up to, and also, because it gives you the chance to show off. A lot of places do have a really big focus on, kind of demoing working software. Whenever you're hammering away on something during the week, do the best you can to actually show people what you did, as opposed to, sitting in the corner and just, writing scripts and stuff, which definitely happens. We'll probably break this down is have each pair talk about the task that you did. We'd like you to go through the code to kind of talk through the decisions that you made or any kind of weird issues or anything that you ran into while you were working it. And then also kind of reference the working version of the stuff. This is the same kind of thing that we have in the PRs with the pushing your code up onto feature branches deployed onto Firebase. I did just drop in the chat the link to the main version of the web app, which is up on hosted on Firebase right now. So in terms of clicking around and showing it, you just refer us to the website probably and show us what you're doing there. But it'd be nice if we had one representative from each pairing kind of show their screen and kind of walk through what you want to do. We didn't prepare you for this up until now, so is in the next weeks as you go through, it's a good idea to kind of talk through amongst your pair who's going to do the demoing and stuff on the upcoming sync. So today, let's start with. Let's do, who did we have? We had Tatiana and Yolanda. We're doing the router, the list and the add item views and getting that set up. Would either one of you like to volunteer to kind of share your screen and talk us through what you did?
Sure, I can do that.
All right,
Like.
awesome.
Yolanda, are you okay with me doing it? I just want to make sure.
Okay, cool. Yeah, go ahead. And again, share your screen if you want to walk us around the actual working web app. And again, as much of the code as you feel good about kind of walking through and talking about.
Yeah. So I think you all can see my screen now. Our assignment was to create two views, a list view and an add an item view. And the idea was that a user will be able to switch between the two views depending on whether they just want to see a whole list or just add a specific item. So thinking about the assignment, it was pretty clear that the goal here was to create a kind of like a navigational panel, because one of the asks was also that the links for the two views live at the bottom of the page. So when approaching this, we knew that we had to add React Router DOM as a dependency. And in order to get our links to work, we created a new, I think I have it here. Yep, we created a new component that we called bottom nav, and this is where our links live. Now, we also knew that we had to create two views, like I said, list and add an item. So we created two components for those. A list component. This is quite basic for now, and add an item component. Again, quite basic for now. And let me go to the live app. So this is the home page that you see. And here at the bottom, you will see the two links that we have created. And I will click on one. I'll click on list. You see that this is the list view is just the basic text we put in just so it's clear which view you're looking at. Note that the route changes when you click on that. And one of the asks was that the link is bold when we are in the particular view. So I'll go to the second view, add an item view. Again, we see the text, like very basic text here that says this is an add an item view. Note that the route changes. And again, the link is bold when we are in this particular view. Can I answer any questions?
I think it makes sense. Yolanda, do you have anything else you want to like that you thought about when kind of working through this? Or was there any kind of challenge that you had working through this, or it all looks great?
No, I mean, I had a good time working with Tatiana. She did, show me the switch, which I wasn't aware of. So I thought that was really nice to learn. So, but no, we kept it very simple, so that made it easier to tackle these tasks instead of trying to overthink it.
Cool. Awesome. And then, anything else, any questions from anybody else on the initial setup of the router?
It looks great, guys. It's cool.
It really does.
All right, I'll stop sharing then and we can move on.
All right.
Y'all did a perfect job of meeting the acceptance criteria, which doesn't sound like it should be, but can be a very, very challenging thing to do, keeping it in scope. So brilliant job keeping directly to the scope. That is exactly what you were supposed to do, and you did it brilliantly. Amazing.
Thank you. But I have to thank whoever wrote that little tip saying that we should not be going crazy just yet, and that the views really should be very simple. I want to thank that person because this could have gotten out of hand real quick.
That was Andrew. Andrew wrote the coaching notes. He's brilliant and amazing, and I love him.
Thank you.
It's actually pretty impressive that didn't have so many people, and not just like at TCL. I've been guilty of walking in the door, to a new job and just wanting to be like, I'm going to show off and show you guys how smart I am. And I'm going to build out all the stuff. And then you end up in this corner in the whole, like with this huge mess around you, and you're like, I don't know what I did. Yeah.
Right, Lyle? Like sticking to the acceptance criteria in itself is a skill that you have to like really focus on building, because for me, oftentimes like, here's the issue at hand, but to complete this, well, I need to do this and this, and well, probably this. And it'd be easier to do that if I did this and this and this. And sometimes it's like, you just need to ship what's going to make the money. Like, is this the thing that product team is asking for? Ship it. Like quickest, easiest way you can, ship it. Of course, there are trade-offs and it's very nuanced, but stick to the acceptance criteria and be loud if you think it's going to take longer than expected.
Which happens a lot. Sam or Danny, does either one of you want to take the wheel here and drive us through the code that you worked on?
I can go. There was a
Sorry, my windows were all screwed over right now. My bad. I was like trying to find where Zoom was and I got lost. Sorry about that.
Would you prefer to go, Sam, or are you good if I do this?
No, you can go ahead, definitely.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Then let me just pull up the issues before I start sharing.
Oh, that's actually, Danny, like, I love what you're saying right now. And it like has just dawned on me now. A really good tip when you're doing demos is to start by showing the issue you're working on so that whoever's watching, because sometimes there will be people outside of your team coming to demos. So if you start by showing those issues, like, here's the problem we were trying to solve and here's how we solved it. Brilliant.
Oh no. Okay, Zoom's doing that thing again that it's probably gonna boot me because apparently my permissions didn't save from last time. So we'll see if this works.
No big deal. You're really quick to come back, so it's fine.
All right, let's just get this. We'll see if it boots me or not.
I'm running Ubuntu on this laptop, and for some reason it logs me out of Zoom every single day. So I'm like always have to re-authenticate and do that whole thing. It's a peculiar piece of software.
I went through a phase where I wanted to be like an Ubuntu user, and there were too many of those weird things that I was like, I can't anymore. I quit. I quit trying. So good for you, Lyle. You're a super guy.
When you're doing certain things, it's really, really, really nice. I started trying to do the same stuff in Windows and it just was not working. So like it was either that or go and ask for a beefy Mac or something to do the stuff. And I don't want to like do that. But I know a lot of people, especially in web dev, think you kind of need to be on a Mac, and there's good reasons for that too. Looks like Danny's here though, so I'll quit yakking.
I made it. I forgot I had to do a clean install on my Mac last week, so fun times. All right, so we had issue 1, or user story 1. I don't know which one we want to call this. Pretty basic acceptance criteria. So we wanted to make sure that we were adding the dependencies for Firebase and React Firebase hooks so we can actually connect to our Firebase and Firestore database. We wanted to be able to make a change in Firestore and have it reflect within the app and vice versa. When we make a change to the app, it reflects in the database. I'm really grateful for those notes as well about not going crazy, because initially we're like, okay, we need to do this and this. And then I was like, wait, hold on. Hard code it into the button. Just let's not do that. So that was the basic. I will say Sam took a lot of lead on the Firebase hooks. I feel like he had a better understanding of what we needed to do there. So I did some navigating to make sure that we were going in the right direction, which was awesome. I guess within the code, or within the within the app itself, we created this grocery container, which you can see at the top, that allows you to click a button, submit an item, and it'll populate within the list. This is just to make sure that everything is communicating with the database correctly. And then if you go within the Firestore side, which of course I don't have the link up for right now, you can see that populate within the database as well, kind of simultaneously.
If you want to show that, there's a link to the console in your project brief. So if you go into your repo, yep.
That's it.
If you go back to the TCL 27 smart shopping list, the root of that, and then the project brief.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah.
I was like, I know it's in here somewhere.
Yeah, database console, there it is, cool.
Perfect. So within this, we have it create, for each time you click a button, you can see this list here of, I don't know how many items at this point, but when you click the button, it'll create a unique ID and it will populate. So right now it all is oranges with a unique ID and the same quantity to make sure that everything is there.
If you put those two windows side by side, it should pop in without any refreshing or anything. It should be real time.
Ooh, yeah.
Let's see if that's true.
That's the hope, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so this should, there we go.
There it is.
So this is our new one.
I'm watching the app on my machine too, and every time you do it, like on my machine, it just updates without refreshing or anything, and it's amazing.
I love React. It's so great. It's so great. And then within the code itself, we created a couple different components. So grocery card was where we have our individual list items. So for every individual item on that list, we're going to have this card that populates the data. So they're not replicating any work within the other components, as well as, let me pull this up. Oh, I didn't pull the updated code. Cool. We're good. And then within the app.js, the correct one, we added in this grocery container that allows us to do the list items of each individual card, which is not there. Am I missing it? This is the least professional presentation I've ever done because I can't, it's in the containers. A grocery container here that allows us to pull in each individual card using state and displaying quantity, frequency, all of that. I don't know what else I needed to add in there. Sam, did you have anything that you wanted to talk through, like challenges that we had or anything else that I missed?
Sorry, my computer is just going crazy right now. Yeah, definitely. So I gotta thank Danny for stopping me at certain points, because like the brief said, don't go too crazy with it. Like I definitely had the urge to, but she stopped me, so I'm thankful of that. One thing that we made sure within that actual aspect of trying to keep things simple, we decided to hard code in basically what item and the quantity by pressing, or the same item and the same quantity by pressing the button, instead of like being able to actually write anything in like an input text box, because we read through the other user stories and we see that like one of them actually includes doing that. So we're going to wait for that to actually implement. Another thing is for creating IDs, we actually used React, a different dependency called React UUID, which enables us to create a unique ID for each new item that we want to store into the database. Other than that, there's just like a cool thing that we found using Firebase. I believe the on snapshot function in our get groceries function is a method that Firebase gives us that allows us to basically update the component or the view immediately, rather than having to refresh the page to actually see the change. So, like Stacy was saying, when she pushed something into the database or submitted something into the database, she saw it immediately on her screen. Like that is an attribute of or a feature that on Snapshot gives us. So we found that really interesting and really great, just so that the website was super was quick and just showed you all the updates immediately. But yeah, other than that, I think I think one of the challenges that we faced was more of a syntax issue, where when we were trying to create a component, I mistakenly wrote the syntax wrong and how to import a component, and we were stuck on that for a little bit. So we just skipped it and then came back to it, but realized it was a very simple syntax error. But other than that, it was pretty smooth.
Awesome.
Did anyone have any questions or anything they want to throw out before I stop sharing my screen?
Love this. It's great work.
This is such great work. And I think that the code that you put in place here is going to set your whole team up for success in the coming weeks. So brilliant job.
I agree. All right. Well, thank you. Both of those things went awesome and went about as expected too, which is great. Like that's just being predictable and doing the thing. We're harping on it a lot, but it's a really important part of doing the job. That being said, I am
going to expand on that a teeny tiny bit, because you're I was mentioning it in chat. These demos are so important to your reputation as a developer, right? So we get so little face time in front of stakeholders, the people who are asking for the work. And a lot of times they will attend these demos, whether it's these small demos or a big one where you're launching a product. And if you can get yourself in front of their eyes as the person who's explaining things and demonstrating what the code does, that's going to set you aside in your career. So as intimidating as it might be, as much as you might not know what you're talking about, take it, do the demo, take the opportunity and get yourself seen, because it's going to be very important to your reputation and your future as a developer. So it's scary, I get it, but do it.
I have a thing to add to that too. My favorite thing is to record a demo.
Yes.
Because you can walk through it. The database will always fail when you've got like the president and the CEO in the room.
Yes.
You know, and so if you can just do it and it's quiet, and then you can listen to your voice, and then you can like maybe edit it a little bit, or at least stop it when you know like there's a thing that just needs to load in the background and you don't need people to wait 25 seconds. You know, you can kind of do the magic on there, and you don't have to add a lot of polish to it, but just make it just like a quick. And sometimes I'll make a recording, but then I'll speak over it when I do, so it's like a live, so it feels more fresh, but you're actually just describing the walkthrough. And if you're on a Mac, I mean, it's, what is it? It's like Command Shift 4 or Command Shift 5 does the recording. And then you can just do it from there. I mean, there are some handy links I think I saw this week. It's like Stitch or some other ones that you can use that put like your face up there and stuff, but I don't think it's necessary. I mean, it adds a lot of polish, like people love it. Yeah, those ones, Loom and Zappy, they're worth looking into.
Yeah, if you feel like nervous about a part of it going wrong, like April said, just record that part, and then like you can do the whole demo live, but then be like, I'm going to show you how this works using this GIF that I created.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's like, here's a movie.
Well. Yeah. Never admit that it might go well. Just be like, this is the way I planned it. Here's a GIF.
Also, GitHub pull requests support GIFs as well. So if you put them in there, you can drop them in.
And larger file size as of recently.
Oh, that's true. There's lots of fun tricks. You can learn all the tricks.
Yeah, I love putting screenshots in my pull request, just especially if it was a UI change. And I'm like, I don't really necessarily need someone to download this. This is what it looks like now. You know, if you just need to do a quick code review, this is what it now does.
100%. It gives your code reviewers and everybody a sense of like what you're even looking at too. Because you pop into a pull request and you're like, what even, where, what is it, huh? And then you're like, oh, I recognize that because I've seen that UI and it looks different now. I love it.
All right.
Okay.
We'll add one more thing to demos, and then we're gonna let April do the code review talk. Which is recordings are great, GIFs are great. Being able to walk through the thing is great. The best versions of demos are the ones where you're doing something real and not doing the like stood up, like the fake Western town where like all of the storefronts just fall over behind it. Like the more you can demo a real piece of software doing the real thing, much better than doing the kind of the pretend example demo thing. You can't always do that, but just working software. All right. That being said, April, you want to talk to us about code reviews?
Oh, do I? Let's see. I have to figure out how to share. Where is it? Where's the button? Screen share.
Bottom middle.
The big one.
Yep.
The big green one in the middle of the, yeah.
Don't get used to it. It'll move on you.
Okay, so I'm gonna, yeah. So code reviews, which this is coming at a great time because you guys have done code reviews. You've got a pretty good idea of what they are and how they go and how to make them great. But then this will probably just be some overview. Okay, so what we're gonna go over. What is a code review? We pretty much know what that is. The code review cycle, what makes it great, what makes it good, how can I help others review my code? We talked about some ideas with like images and walking through it, and we'll discuss some more. How can I review others? And exploring code in GitHub. Well, let's get started. What is a code review? I mean, honestly, it's just a conversation about code changes. So describing the what and the how, really. And it's also a really good place to highlight something. And I think I saw this in some of your code reviews this week, like something that you learned and something that's really valuable to share with the team. And that you can also do that. You're like, this is a neat trick that I learned. Maybe it's a design choice that no one's seen before, or I have never seen this before. And it made everything go like much faster. You know, you collaborate, you can ask questions. I mean, sometimes I'll see something in a code review and I'll be like, what is this doing? You know, like, I'm not understanding this. And yeah, it makes you a better developer because everybody's got different style, or you're coming from different places. And like people may be really great at routing and some people are really great at CSS. And so it's a great place to share that knowledge. Yeah, so, and I do think it makes us better. I mean, it kind of, sometimes it feels like it's a chore, but it does make us all better. Like anytime you actually spend some quality time in a code review, you get something out of it. And I love looking at old pull requests to figure out if how somebody did something or what their methodology was. And so it keeps a history of that too. So if you're working on something and you're like, wait a minute, this is like super familiar, a good code review of your own or pull request can like totally save your bacon sometimes when you're like looking back and trying to remember what you did 6 months ago. Okay, so the cycle we're all familiar with. You open a pull request, you get some feedback, you make some changes, and then you push it. Okay, so what makes a code review a great code review? And if anyone has any questions, feel free to like stick your hand up, or I don't know, cough, that works too. Okay, so, you know, there's some stylistic changes. Sometimes it's really easy to say like, oh, you left 3,000 console logs. And I get called out on that one a lot because I definitely use logging for things. But things like just, you know, like spaces or anything where you can use a prettier or something built into the system so it just does it for you, you know, you can get that set up pretty nicely. So yeah, try out this feature locally or in the test environment. You know, will you understand this code review a month from now? Like, so what is the information that's really important? You know, give positive feedback. You know, don't try to go into it with the mindset that you're looking for something to like decline them on, because that's, you know, not very, let's see. So be kind and you help others. We talked about this, understand your changes, try to answer all the questions and take your time. Okay. Let's see. Yes.
Works, right?
Yeah. I was like, oh yeah.
A cop. Get back to the last slide. So
Yeah,
the other thing
sure.
I'd say about default to approval is that sometimes it's just a very practical thing too. Like if you have teammates who are in other time zones, you know, especially, you know, you're working kind of asynchronously. So, you know, you might have like, oh, you know, you need to make this change, or I have a suggestion or something like that. But if you approve the PR, trusting that they're going to make those changes before they merge, they're not blocked from merging. So you can actually kind of keep things moving more smoothly as a team sometimes by default, like literally approving it and saying like, hey, before you merge, like make this one small change, but, you know, I'll catch you on the flip side or whatever. So.
Yeah, cool. Anything else? Stacey, is that you editing in real time right now?
It's not. I was just going to say, I bet it's a mentor who's giving this presentation tomorrow. Preparing. It's not me.
That's okay. I mean, I could just change. I was like, my lines are changing as I'm looking at this.
But they're not logged in, so we can't see who it is.
It's I know.
I know. You're doing great, despite everything that is.
Okay, so I mean, we pretty much did everyone get a chance when they were doing code reviews to pull this stuff down and run it, like from the other team? Okay, I'm seeing some nods. Cool.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Should I leave my questions till after?
No, it's fine.
All
Every
right.
time is a good time for a question, and I need some more iced coffee anyway.
Oh, awesome. I don't know if this slide's going to go over it, but when I pull down or check out a teammate's branch, and I do like an npm install to update dependencies, so my local machine has them. When I try to switch back to my like the branch that I'm working on, it would always say, do you want to, like, you need to commit first before you switch back to your branch. And obviously I didn't want to commit anything new to a teammate's branch because they were working on it. And I found, like, just doing a little bit of research, I forgot the actual git command that I could actually force just switching to a branch without saving any of the changes or the dependency changes that I did by running npm install. Is that kind of like how you guys go by it, or how would you actually?
I feel like I have a git ignore like on package install, or git ignore on any, like where the node files or whatever, for that directory. And like anytime because I haven't actually seen that happen on my own, where just install change the code. So there might just be some, or changed anything in the branch that made it look like, because I feel like that's not a thing that should happen. So maybe there's some way, putting the directory in git ignore. And I use, if I just need to go back, I use the git reset hard head a lot. Like if I'm just in a branch and I'm like, I just need everything to just go away, I need to reset this to like the previous commit. And you shouldn't have to really, honestly, you pull it down, but there's nothing to push. So there's really, you can just, change the branch, just reset it to how it was, and then, go into your other branch. Does that help?
Yeah, that definitely helps. Thank you so much. And
I wonder in this instance, Sam, if the issue was because we had those conflicts, that I wonder if there was something going on with that, but I don't know.
I think it was because like we were including a Firebase, importing Firebase into our dependencies, into our package.json, which was saved to the JSON lock. And then they had the React Router DOM that they were importing, and that's when I tried to install the React Router DOM, and that would save into the package.json, that it would then require me to save before I switch back to the branch. But I see that on the chat that we can, there's multiple ways around it. So maybe it's with my environment, but I'll have to look into it a little bit more, but that definitely helped out. Thank you.
All right, anyone else while we're here? Okay, so let's see. So run the code, there's a lot of bugs you can find out too, and you don't see it until you run it. And it's a really good thing to do for other people's code. Sometimes you don't, like you check something in, but you had like this one particular user or something or whatever. There was some, your cards all work perfectly because bananas are like the only ones that work. And then someone comes in with oranges and you're like, now it blows up, so, walk through it, see, kind of feel the code review. Yeah, don't be tempted to skip it. I don't know what LGTM means.
Looks good to me. This is the worst code review you can ever give. I promise you, you can find something to say about somebody's code, whether it's asking a question or making a suggestion, something other than just looking at a PR and then commenting, looks good to me, ship it. Because what happens, or can happen and should never happen, is that you don't thoroughly pay attention to what code is being written and approved and merged to production. And that's when production outages happen. So don't let it happen to you. Be thorough and be mindful of your code reviews and pay them attention, because at the end of the day, if you're signing off on that code, you're signing off on that code.
Yeah. And if there's something that doesn't make sense to you, just ask a question. It's not necessarily blocking. If it's not blocking, you can approve it and be like, but I'd also like to hear more about what you did here. That's fair. Let's see. How can I help others review my code? I think you guys all did a really great job this week, adding that meaningful PR description, explaining, what the problem was and how you solved it. This comes up with the screen capture, and I can get you guys a link to this too, so you can try those out. And, maybe for next week, somebody can do a demo and record it if you want. Don't feel obligated to do that. You can totally do it live, but I feel like it cuts my stress down so much. So I highly recommend it. Especially if you have some performance anxiety. Like I don't, because I'm a theater kid, but I still like shake behind the camera where no one can see. Okay. So exploring the code in GitHub. There's a lot of, and let's see, I don't have GitHub open right now, but actually maybe like Stacy or Andrew, if you guys want to go through what you're highlighting here in this.
Okay, let me look at this. I'm sorry, I was sending chat messages. Okay.
Oh yeah, sorry to call you out like that. Like
no worries, no worries. Okay, so exploring code in GitHub, this can be something that's really helpful to get acquainted with, to kind of take the pressure off code reviews, because code reviews can be a really hard thing to do. So this slide talks about some tips for how to navigate GitHub when you're doing a code review. This first OMG, oh my gosh, is just showing that you have the ability to see here how many lines of code were added and how many were removed. And taking a quick glance at that can give you a better idea of what you're looking at and what you can expect as you go into the code review. The next thing that it's showing, if we look to the left where it says commits and we have this drop down, that's going to show you all of the different commits that happened. And if the people who wrote the code were really dedicated to good commits, they can almost tell a story and you can see a journey through them. So you can see where the code started and what steps they took along the way to put things in place, which can give you a more thorough look about why decisions were made. And you can get some additional details there, additional notes about why things are the way that they are. So if you want to jump through each commit, you can do it there. And whenever you're doing that, if you see where it says navigate and there's an arrow pointing to next, it allows you to jump through those as well. Let's see, I think the next slide might have more. Oh, files changed. Let me talk about that if you go back real quick. The most important thing, like when I'm doing code reviews, I'll look at the conversation tab that's on the left. That's where you read the PR description. That's where hopefully your teammates have written what they changed, what it was like before, what it's like now, and most importantly, steps to test. Try to always include for your readers the steps to test. Once I'm done with the conversation tab, I generally jump straight to the files changed tab that's pointed out with that arrow with the 1 next to it. And inside that, it's going to show you the difference of every single line that was changed. And you can just start from the top and go to the bottom and look at each line and think, does this make sense? Do I understand this code? If not, this is the perfect time to ask a question. And that question can be as simple as, can you tell me more about what this line is doing? Or it can be something as simple as a praise. Like one of my colleagues, Alejandro, who's also a mentor here, will be like, if I'm removing something that we didn't want in the code anymore, like, bye-bye this method or whatever, like just acknowledging that he understands what I'm doing here and it's a good decision. And that makes me feel good. So that's just some notes on how to navigate GitHub. Of course, we're always here if you want to, if you don't know where to find something or you want to learn how to navigate it a little bit more intricately.
And one thing I wanted to point out too is when you make the commit messages, you can also put like, the ticket number or something. I do this in Bitbucket a lot, and then it will link actually to the story. And it's kind of nice because then as the commits go into main, you can actually see the number and like the description, and it will be in there.
Right. I love that. I'm like super passionate about long, thorough commit messages. And one thing too that I like to do is you have your main line commit message. Maybe it's connect to Firestore. But then in your more detailed description, you can link out to, like April said, the ticket number. You can also link out to the Firestore documentation, because 5 months from now, when somebody's looking through GitHub at this particular line of code, they can look at the git blame, which I have
Mhm.
problems with that word, but they can look at the git blame and they can see that commit message and they can link directly to everything that you were working with. So it's a really powerful form of documentation in those commit messages. So just keep that in mind. Okay, I'm done.
Oh yeah, and then this one is really nice too, because while you're going through the individual files, you can click viewed and it collapses each one, so you can kind of see what you did, and then as you go through it, you can just kind of, you know, scrunch it up a little bit. I think that's all on that one. Okay, so what'd you guys like this week about the code reviews? Did you learn anything? We can just go around the room and get something from everybody. Sam, I see you at the top of my list, so I'm going to call on you first.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I learned a ton. First time doing any of this, navigating through GitHub and you know, running through a pull, my first pull request ever. You know, I think personally, like, ran into just like things that I've never done before, like actually going through the changes and you know, clicking on the viewed aspect and possibly writing a comment if there was anything that needed to change or anything like that. You know, everyone's user story this week was conquered very well. So I think, you know, running through the code was pretty smooth. And just like, you know, switching branches, like I commented before, like, you know, didn't really do that too much before. So I learned a lot there. And what was interesting by the end of it was, you know, like there were a couple files that were moved around and the merge happened, but there were still like a couple things. So I actually ended up making a new branch and stated that like, oh, I'm moving the app .js to a different part of in the root folder, and you know, had to run through a new pull request. So it was like extra practice, which was nice. So got everything working, and you know, it was just really nice to just learn, you know, a different aspect of developing that I was really never familiar to, and I'm super excited to continue that and gain more experience in that.
All right, let's continue on with Yolanda. How did you, I guess, well, we have the questions on the screen, so it makes it really easy.
I'm probably with Sam. This was my first time like code review, so I didn't know what to do. I am ashamed to say that I didn't really think of pulling the other teammates branch. I guess I was just so scared I might add something or commit something I know I should. I just didn't know. I didn't want to mess with it. So I just stick with the GitHub user interface and just kind of went with that. It was helpful during our mentor meeting with Lyle, how he showed us like the GitHub action and see it live instead of me trying to mess with it. So that was really cool. So I stuck with that GitHub user interface, if that makes any sense. And I logged into the Firebase and say, oh, look, it's updating. So I know it's working kind of thing. And that was like the extent. But after what you shared today, is very helpful. So I'm hoping like next week I could do a little bit better in the process of the GitHub review. But other than that, and also with the meeting with Lyle, we kind of went over each other's code. So that was helpful. So I was able to see it in action. So I didn't know how else to like make a comment into it, but I think that's, hold on, sorry, I'm reading, making sure. But yeah, my first time doing this, so it was scary, but it was helpful, and hopefully I could apply this knowledge to this upcoming week's code.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. If you want, when we do office hours this week, you're welcome to share your screen and I can walk you through pulling down someone's code and running it and just show you what is in like the terminal and like how to see if you've made any changes and like you know, what to, just to make it easier so someone's looking over your shoulder, you can always revert.
Yep.
So that's the thing about, I don't always know remember how to revert, but so I try not to make that happen, but it's a possibility. That's the nice thing about Git.
Exactly. I love that, April. That's a really great suggestion to do during office hours. Another thing, Yolanda, that like what you're saying is totally something that I experience in my day job as a developer, where instead of doing code reviews by myself, somebody will be like, can you code review this? And then we pair through it and they just walk me through it. And so at the end of it, you might feel like, I don't know what to say. You just walk me through it and looks good to me, like we're talking about. But one thing that I'll generally do is like, walk me through all of these lines and tell me what they do. And as they're telling me what these lines of codes do, I'll leave a comment in the files change, kind of like documenting them telling me what that line of code does, so that again, I can go back to it and say like, oh, right, I know that line does because they told me and I took a note about it. So just take notes. When in doubt, just notes.
So,
Links to documentation.
so how do I take notes? I mean,
Great question. April,
Yeah.
can I trouble you to real quick pull up a pull request? It could be a closed one.
Yeah, let's see what I've got here. I think I've got a link from.
Because this is like the way that you'll take notes and leave comments in the files changed is exactly how you do a full-on code review. So you go to files changed, and then on any line of code or multiple lines of code, I see Lyle putting your finger up. Do you want me to stop? Oh, you're good. Okay. Yeah. So right here, you click on that plus sign on that line and you can say something. So if I were like, April, can you tell me what line 9 does? She would start telling me and I could just type a line there saying, this is importing the add item that April and whoever created. It includes these details. Just kind of note as you go what each thing does. But when you're code reviewing all by yourself too, this is the exact same process you'd go through. So again, if you don't have any, if you look at this code and you're like, I don't know what it does, I have no idea, then just start by asking a question like, hey, April, can you tell me more about what this line of code does? And that's a perfectly acceptable code review. A code review doesn't necessarily have to be you making suggestions. Again, it's just a conversation. Right. It's just learning more about what the code does so that we can all make sure we're putting our brains together to make sure the code is thorough and the code does what it should.
Right.
So, oh, go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, go for it. I don't want to interrupt you while you still have a question.
Okay. Sorry. So if I put the notes in that file change area, everyone could see it, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if I have a question, should I just post it in the file change, or do I go into Slack and like say, hey, like April, like I don't know what a switch does. Like, can we meet up? I wasn't sure. Sorry.
I think you can do either. You know, I mean, because it's also, this is a great place because it's contextual, you know, versus you do it in Slack and then maybe you have to come back. Oh, then, and there's a couple of things you can do with, I know I can do this in GitHub, where you can like have a link.
Are you looking for a permalink to it?
Yeah, like a permalink.
So if you leave, so that's a great question about where you should comment. What I would suggest doing is write your comment here, ask your question here, and then in Slack, in case they missed the notification from GitHub, link to it. And so if you want the link to a comment, you would click on the 3 dots next to the comment and you can link to it there. However, see that copy link, that first one, that'll link you to the comment on the PR. If you want a link to that permalink, that line of code, on up next to the viewed checkbox on the upper right-hand side, click the 3 dots there and view the file. And then when you're inside the file, you can click on a line of code and you can even shift click a few lines down and get the permalink from there if you want to link to a line of code for whatever reason. But to answer your question, I would write the comment in the PR and link to it in Slack just to make sure you're being very thorough about your communication.
And like here, we're still in the pull request and we can, and you can also, you know, I think you can also make a comment here, or maybe I'm, well, you can at least copy the line and get the permalink and put that in Slack. Let's continue with Danny.
I want to answer real quick one more aspect of that question because I think it's important.
Okay. Yeah.
There's times where I think it makes sense to not want to put your questions in the visible place, which is on the pull request. So, there's some situations where you might feel like, oh, I'm the only one who doesn't know what this means. Maybe I'll just, shyly kind of ask the person via Slack. And sometimes that's okay, right? Like if you're new or something, like that's fine. If you don't want to be like asking what would be maybe, a silly or an obvious question, just to go hit someone up on Slack and act in a more private way. The other one might be if you're seeing someone do something and you don't want to like call them out necessarily for doing something that is goofy and weird in the pull request, maybe sometimes like a little bit more of a side channel is good for that. So that like you can have more of those private type of conversations. But I will say that I think defaulting to asking the questions in Slack is the right place to do it most of the time. You want everyone on the team to know what the code is doing. And so likely if you're asking that question, somebody else is probably also at least fuzzy on it, if not like 100% clear. And it also helps people to know that, hey, you need maybe a little bit more, catching up on some of these areas to kind of know where things are. So I think asking the questions in the obvious place is probably the right place most of the time to make sure that all the people working on the code know how the code works. Because then it, that's the whole point of being kind of in there and on the team. So, it can be a little scary. It can be a little weird on pull requests to be like, putting that stuff out there. Right. But I think that's the right place to do it. Anyway. All right. Sorry. Please continue.
Okay. Hey, Danny, I'll go back to this. How was code reviewing this week?
Yeah, let's do it. I feel like my first week was a little hectic between like my day job and getting started. So I definitely Thursday was like or Wednesday, I think it was Thursday that I was like, I know I haven't reviewed it yet. I'm getting there. So it was good. I feel like the replication directions were fantastic to have because I feel like even just the like, hey, pull this branch using this, get checkout using this, so you make sure you're in the right place, because that's so often something that I just cannot for the life of me wrap my head around. So that was great. I think, it was pretty obvious as I was reading through that I was like, we're going to have some weird things we have to work through for this, right? Like Sam and I made a list that shows all these items, and they made 2 views that don't do anything with our list items. They just kind of like are on the page permanently. So I actually really liked seeing how those things currently interact and where I already see it, the trajectory going. So that was really neat to be like, oh, we already made this code that we can literally just move into a different component, and now it's going to do a thing, which is really cool to see that like forethought. And yeah, I had never done a code review. I'm on a team now that we're like doing some internal tools projects, but the first PR just happened like last week, and I was the one who submitted it, so you don't know what's going on with that yet. So it was very new, and I'd only had my code reviewed once to get the job that I'm in now for like a technical support role. And pretty much they were like, your code's not very clean. There's too many console logs. And that's why I didn't get the job originally. And I was like,
no.
I was like, I've never coded with anyone else. This is all by me. I don't know what's happening. So it's nice to actually have other people, but now I'm very cognizant of that as we were about to submit stuff to be like, oh, hey, let's remove all of our logging because we don't need that in GitHub. But yeah, it's a learning process for sure.
I have a comment on that one. Sometimes I will do the pull request and I won't automatically, as I'm writing out the description, I won't assign people until I've looked at my pull request first. That has saved me from so much embarrassment where I'm just like, all capital letters. Am I where I'm supposed to be? Console log. Like I still do this all the time. Like, yeah. And I feel like that helps a lot because then you don't have to go through those you're like, what would I look through in my own code review first, because there's a lot of stuff you don't remember, what you did or where you were, what file. Maybe you made a change in a file and it turns out that you actually just didn't even need to touch it, and you can clean that out. Okay, so Tatiana, how was it this week?
Great. I think I'm just going to echo what everybody else has already said because I never had such a formal review process. So it was new, but it was like it was really cool. I loved it. And it was the first time writing such a thorough and detailed pull request, but it definitely, I can see how it helps everybody, both parties. So I definitely learned a lot. And even through this conversation right now, still learning.
Cool. Well, at the end of this, I put this link for this presentation in the Slack, so you can see that there's some other stuff that, for some late reading later in the week. And that ends our presentation on code reviews. Thank you, everyone.
So I just dropped this in the chat. But since we are at the hour mark right now, we have a little bit more to talk about with assigning the issues and kind of talking about what's coming up in the week. Does anyone need to drop right now, or can we keep going? Cool. We'll try and be expedite it, go quickly. But yeah, we'll just I'm trying to be mindful of everybody's time because it is Saturday. Cool. Sorry. So April, thank you very much. The code reviews, such an important thing, and it's really important that we talk about them, and it's really important that we try and make everybody feel safe and confident in doing pull requests and code reviews, because they're probably like the most important part of working on a team and writing code, and a lot of times don't get the attention they deserve. So appreciate that. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and we're going to talk about the work that is coming up. A couple of procedural things real quick that we kind of ran into during the week. We talked about it a little bit, about how we had the conflict and kind of working through it. I don't want to open DevTools, I want to open the right thing. So first off, I apologize for, we had office hours earlier in the week, and we did kind of see there was an issue coming up that came from just moving the app.js file, which is not a big deal. And sometimes it makes sense to move things to where, it might make more sense for them to go. We just want to make sure that, when that stuff is coming up, that we communicate it with the other teammates, because then we end up with these, the pull request resolve situation. And we had to do like a merge order thing in order to prevent sort of the deleting or duplicating of files. And, in this case, we were merging on Friday night, and things kind of went in quickly, and then oops, and then we had to go in and do a fix it PR. That stuff's going to happen. So I apologize for not recapping the notes on the office hours and putting that out there, because I think that was the missing piece that would have maybe kept us from running into that. But I will say it's a good experience anyway to kind of have it happen and to work through it. And to that end, it actually worked out just fine. So good job, everyone there. Again, I apologize for not, I'll try and do more, recap-y type notes in the Slack channel just to over communicate when that type of stuff is coming up. And just, let's be conscientious of things that might cause that kind of error in the work going forward. Can you all see my screen? Cool. Thankfully, I don't think there's as much of an opportunity for conflict. The one area I think that might happen is we do have kind of the demo of the Firebase stuff right now, and we're going to end up replacing that with the stuff for the actual components that we want to implement going forward. So we just want to keep that in mind kind of as we go. We have 2 stories that were coming up. So I think we got this one over. So I'm going to go ahead and move this card over into done, because I know that we got that merged and we demoed it earlier. We do want to be mindful of this board as we walk through and we do the process. And one other thing, I dropped a link to this in the chat. I'll drop a link to this in the Slack channel again as well. When you create your pull requests, if you add the closes number X, in this case, closes number 3 or closes number 4, and I think we did this right in our last cohort, these numbers didn't line up with the pull request number was not the same as the title, and then we ended up unsyncing. But if you put that in there down this section right here, we'll actually show a linked pull request so that it'll join them together. And as we do things like close or move them around, the automation hooks up on the pull request, and it's all very nice. So when you open the pull requests early in the week, just keep in mind, you want to drop in, and I'll put the link to the GitHub instructions to make sure that the link between the story and the pull request happens, and all that stuff is good. So let's talk about the two stories. The first one, and I have the big view pulled up in here, which is, as a user, I want to set up a new shopping list so that I can start tracking purchased items. A shopping list consists of a set of items associated with the user's token. Creating a new list consists of the following sequence: generate a new unique token, save the token to local storage, show the user the list view, and then the following script should be used to generate a suitable token. Before I go over the AC, I'm just going to show you the couple of elements that this thing is talking about. So there's more down here in the notes, but I've pulled it up in one of these tabs. The welcome screen wireframe. So this is the wireframe. No, it doesn't have any styles or anything applied to it, but kind of where we're shooting for. Again, this is not the fully everything that needs to be done here in the story. This is just, kind of the thing to orient you to the direction of what we're trying to go. Note that there's a button that says create a new list. And then there's an input thing here, which says, hey, share your token and join an existing list. Let's see where this token comes from. So this token comes from, we have a library that's here. By the way, this is in the repo resources wireframes. That's where that directory is if you want to go look at this yourself.
Hey, Lars, can I just point one thing out about the wireframes is that the wireframes represent sort of the end state of the UI. And this week you're only going to be doing like one little piece of it. So don't implement everything you see on the wireframe. That's what you're working towards over the course of a few issues.
Right. Yes. Very, very important. Again, I was just showing you because that it's there and it's relevant, but we're not doing the whole thing. The other piece that's in here is the tokens library. So this is in source lib in the repo. There's a JavaScript library set of functions already defined for you. We've got a array up here full of words. Oh, my screen is being slow on me for the moment, so it's not letting me highlight stuff. I'm not sure why. Array up here full of words. Starts at A, goes all the way down to words in the Z. We've got a secure random function that generates out a random number and then picks a random set of words from the words array and spits them out for you. That's what this get token function does down here at the bottom. You get 3 words. Those words are the unique key to the list. Is generally where we're going with that. So just know that you need to, and the website's crashing. Just know that you need to use that function to generate your token. Back to the story itself. So here's the acceptance criteria. For users who do not already have a token, a button or link exists on the home screen that allows them to create a new list. So in effect, generate a new token here. Clicking the button link generates the new token and saves it into local storage. So we can talk more about that later if you need to know kind of the deal with local storage and saving to and getting things from there. Once the token has been created and saved, the user is redirected to the list view. So remember, we created 2 views. We created the ad and we created the list. We also have the welcome screen. We should talk a little bit more about the views, but there's kind of the 3 there, right? This is your, what is my thing? This is your welcome screen. This is kind of the base routes. This is not the list, and this is not the add new item. This is how you get to the list. So when I, get a token and I pop it in here, I should be able to be redirected to my list and see my shopping list of stuff. So all we really want you to do right now is do the generate of the token piece. So I want that button. I want to click the button. I want to get a new token. When I get the token, put it into local storage. And then if it's there, we should be redirected to the list view. So that other view in the router. So there's a good chunk of stuff there, but again, it's not everything. Eventually the welcome frame will look like that. So that's the wireframe that I just showed you. It's good for your whole team to look at the wireframe now. That's what we just did, but feel free to reference it during the week. And for this story, it's sufficient to just have a simple create list button. So we're not talking about doing the Firestore piece. So we just hooked all that stuff up so it's there, but note that that's not important right now. We're going to do the actual Firestore saving and pulling things back up later. All we're doing right now is putting a token in local storage when that happens. So any questions on this one before I move on to the other story? Great. As we go through the week, if you feel you have questions, by all means, ask, be noisy, let us know. April's got office hours. I think she already put the doodle up for that. So again, another good place to ask questions. The other story, as a user, I want to add a new item to my shopping list so that I can start recording purchases. Shopping list item consists of the following data points: the name of an item, how soon are you likely to buy it again? So soon, kind of soon, and not soon. There's basically 3 different categories, 3 different states that your item can be in terms of when do I want to order it again, and then the last purchase date. So this is kind of giving you the layout for what an item is, right? And the attributes that we need to care about in order to make it. I pulled up the other wireframe. So here, I want to add a new item to the shopping list, and this is what this is. So to represent, here's my 3 different states. I've got, in this case, it is a radio view, radio button, thank you, of these 3 things that you can pick from. It can only have one. It can't be all 3, right? It doesn't make any sense. So just keep that in mind. And then we've got the add button, that will push it in as well as kind of the name. So this is just, again, what this is looking like. Note that according to this view, we are on the add item view, which is not what we were just talking about in the other cards, right? So this is its own separate view for adding an item to the list. Acceptance criteria. The user is presented with a form that allows them to enter the name and select how soon they anticipate needing it. So text input and pick the state, right? When the user submits the form, the item is saved to the database associated with the user's token. And we'll note that we have a little bit of an asterisk with the token piece here, along with the item name, an integer corresponding to the estimated number of days until the next purchase. So we just had those 3 different states. They correlate to these 3 different numbers. That's the part that we want to save with the item. And the last purchase date should be set to null initially, because you can add an item to your list. You haven't bought it yet. It's the whole point of a shopping list. And then the item names should be displayed as simple unordered list on the list view after they're added. I can't remember. I don't think we want to actually have you update the list view at the moment, although I think it's somewhat implied here with the acceptance criteria. Again, this is kind of hooking up and doing a push and a save. The way to show that off would be to add it to the list view to indicate that, like, hey, my add button item worked. I'd say if you need to cut scope on this card to get it in and get it done, then I wouldn't necessarily worry about the list view as much as I would adding it into Firebase. And if all you get to is being able to see it in the Firebase console and it doesn't show up on the other side of the list view yet, that's an answer to that as well. So just know that, there's notes here at the bottom, right? This add item form is potential to have a lot of scope. There's also some additional notes, related to accessibility and UX. Keep in mind those things, but we'll worry about accessibility. We'll do a whole talk on it later, so I wouldn't stress about that too much right now. Want it to look like the wireframe, and this is backwards from what I just told you. Sufficient to just get a simple list of the items displaying. I think that's kind of to the point of, again, to have something to show off the fact that you added it to Firebase. So if you want to just add on the list view, just effectively test the text that looks like what we're already showing on the main app right now in terms of things that are reading out of Firebase, right? That's probably sufficient enough as well, just to demo that the important part is that you're adding an item into Firebase and that's showing back up. The other asterisk that I want to point here is that we're talking about the token. The other card and the other pair will be working on getting the token piece hooked up and added. So I think for this card also, you can assume or just hard code in, put in a token right now, knowing that the token generator piece isn't there yet, right? Someone else is working on that. So note that's going to be coming down the line. So good for you to keep an eye on what the other pair is doing and talk to them. Just know that, like, when we say user is saved to the database associated with the user's token, the rest of the piece is coming. So you can just make up a token for now and save it in the database to show your work. If you just put in like a random, list one token for now that goes to the database and pulls back the list, that's probably fine. Andrew, you can off mute.
Yeah. I'll add to that if you just do a little bit of coordination with the other pair and find out what key they're going to use for local storage for their token, you could just add that directly through the developer tools. So you have that key, just add some random string, and then just, whenever they finish their stuff, it'll just all hook up magically. So instead of, just having a token as a variable or something in the component, go through the process of actually pulling it out of local storage, and then you'll be golden when you go to merge.
So that being said, does anyone have any questions on this story so far? Cool. All right. So those are the cards on the board. Let's go back to the project brief. This week's pairs, we have Yolanda and Danny, and we have Sam and Tatiana. I was going to say we should let team one pick their card first. I did notice as I was deciding on that earlier that at least Danny is in the first group for every single week on here, which I don't know how that happens, but I guess it just happens, whatever.
That's amazing. How'd you do that, Danny? You're like, I'm at the top.
Magician. Just ninja'd my way in there, like I ninja'd that merge with the conflicts somehow.
So clever, good hacking. But I think for now, for this week, we'll go ahead and let Yolanda and Danny have the first word out the gate here on, is either one of those stories sound like one that you've got strong feelings about picking up?
I don't have a preference. Danny?
I'm leaning towards user story 4.
The add a new thing and drop it into Firebase?
Yeah.
Any objections?
No objections for me. Oh, sorry.
Sam and Tatiana, do you want to fight for it for any reason?
No.
Okay, cool. Then I'll do that. So I'll drop that in here. I just said, we said, cool. And then I'll go to the other one and I'll do, that looks right. I'll do, awesome. Cool. So again, that's you kind of know your pairs. Start a thread in the TCL 27 room, and start discussing things as you get ready to go. Always a good idea to get the pull request open early. You can always add commits to it while it's up in there, but that gives us a place to ask questions and talk. We have office hours that April has already put up the time for, and I think she is also going to be doing the code reviews for this week. So when we get to having everybody do the pull request and sign them off, we'll have the other pair go in, do their review in the code review row in the. So we're going to move these things in progress. I'm just going to do that right now. As you get ready for peer review, drop them into here. As the other pair goes in here, does their code review, like we just talked about, click the approve and sign off on the thing. When that happens, move the card into the ready for mentor review, assign April to do it. April will come in, do the code review, click approve on there. Then we can do the merged in and get it ready for done. I don't anticipate any merge conflicts off the top of my head, but that doesn't mean that they won't show up. If you think that is happening, please, be loud and communicate with the other team, and I think we'll be good to go. Do you have any other questions before we close for the week?
I have a question, just that I put in the sidebar. So it looks like we have Tuesday and Thursday kind of in the evening, or it's in the like 10 o'clock or something, 9 or 10 p.m. So that works with the most people. And Danny, I think you missed last week, right? We couldn't get you on it. So I want to make sure we got you this week. Unfortunately, it means Tatiana, we didn't get any with your time. But I can do it.
I may still be able to make it work.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So I'm thinking maybe Thursday. I don't know if it works better to just have it and then we can do pull requests and go over code reviews and stuff like that later in the week. Just ping us if you have any questions, like if we need to like jump on a call and just discuss something, we totally can do that earlier in the week. And I can't do Wednesday because I'm learning to ride a motorcycle that day. So I'm sorry.
From what we know about you so far, that feels fitting.
Right.
That checks out.
Sorry. Nope.
Wear a helmet.
Oh yeah. Well, I rolled my truck last year, so I always wear a helmet. Like
Good.
just walking down the street.
Wow. Daredevil. Holy crap.
Woohoo. All right. Okay. So I'll set out the meeting invite. And Lyle, can I use the Zoom room that you use?
Yeah, I think the only thing that doesn't work is the recording button, but I'll look into that now.
Okay,
If I'm for some
cool.
reason not on there and I just didn't look at the doodle to make, I'll try and
Yeah.
be there too. I mean, it's your office hours, and I'll let you, but like
It looks like the evening, Tuesday, Thursday, and we're happy to have you. You know, it's fine. The more, the merrier. We'll bring popcorn and it will be great times.
we should
Okay.
popcorn. Yeah.
Woo.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Again, this was awesome. Y'all had a really good first week. And I'm really excited to see where you continue to have good weeks through the rest of the thing. Appreciate you, hanging on after a couple minutes. But we got talking through the stuff. That being said, any questions, feel free to hit us up. Any last comments before we close?
Great work, team. So good.
Copying me. I'm just kidding. Y'all did brilliant. I can't wait to see what you build. See you around Slack.
All right. Have a good weekend,
y'all.
everybody.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.